All right, everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about the junior prom, the senior prom, dances, going steady, dating, our first girlfriend, and that time a whole bunch of girls gave Chris their phone number.
So Jeff was thinking about, especially as we became teenagers, or maybe in some cases prior to being teenagers, that whole sort of relationship kind of thing, right? And when I say relationships, I was talking about like boyfriends and girlfriends, and I'm using air quotes right now for people listening.
Yeah, he is, everybody.
And we were like, and again, we were subjected to what we thought was, and again, and I'm not just going to, I'll just get into traditional boys and girls. I don't get too deep into anything else. But we were kind of subjected to a Richie Cunningham or a Greg Brady or Marcia Brady, with that famous football busting her nose. I mean, all that stuff of like the boyfriend / girlfriend kind of ideal, right? And that's what it was, right? It was presented to us as an ideal. And this was like a natural thing, or just like, not even necessarily a natural thing, an expected thing, right? And the things that sort of happened and going steady or going on dates and doing all that stuff. Man, I'm throwing air quotes all over the place. I almost poke myself in the eye.
That's a lot of air quotes.
And I think about it because, again, obviously we've made references and we go way back. And the thing that kind of strikes me is that was what we were kind of told or shown, like, hey, you got to have a girlfriend and hang out down at the malt shop. Or you got to go to on dates and you got to go to the prom and all those and dances and all those sort of things. But that wasn't, at least in my experience, and I think in most people's experience, that wasn't how it was, right? But on the other side, you were what I would essentially, if this were technology, I would say you were an early adopter of the traditional, hey, I've got a girlfriend. I'm going steady. I have something implied to do at least one night on a weekend if I wasn't working at Captain Kidd's Galley, right?
That's
Captain
right.
Kidd's Galley, right? Or whatever it was. I'm thinking, okay. So, I mean, and that was, but you, without getting into too many specifics or too personal, but again, you were the outlier, right? You were the one that essentially, you were the kid on TV. You were Richie Cunningham. Whereas most kids were not. Now, I give you the floor. And again, I'm throwing Richie out there. You want to be Greg Brady, you can be Greg Brady.
I don't want to be either one of them. Thank you. Can I just always be the guy that I wished I came across as at all times, which is Tim Matheson in Animal House. That is, to me,
all right.
It's either Tim Matheson in Animal House or any movie that Bill Murray ever did.
Okay.
But those were the guys that I looked up to the most.
No
Anyway,
William Shatner. I would have thought you would throw a little James T. Kirk in there, but okay.
I didn't want to be William Shatner. I just like the show. So yeah, no, didn't want to be like him. Just like the idea of being in a starship and doing that stuff. So,
okay.
I guess you're right. It's funny, Chris, because you're right, 100%. Obviously, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, right? Where it really became super idyllic, the nuclear family and everybody has to get married and you have to have a wife and then you go off and do the work and then she does the thing in the kitchen and all that stuff. And then, every sitcom, that was the setup, right? Any sitcom or any show that depicted the average American family was always that setup. And so I think a lot of the youth through movies and everything that we saw with our parents and their movies, we all just assumed, that at all times, the normal state of affairs for a guy is to have a girlfriend and vice versa. And yeah, I guess for whatever weird reason, I was an adopter, an early adopter even, because I still look back on it, Chris. We went to different elementary schools. I'm sure that your elementary school was a complete 100% mimic of mine. I highly doubt that there's anything strange or unusual going on at Myron B. Green Elementary that wasn't going on over at yours, right? But for some reason, going steady and having a girlfriend, man, how old were we? I mean, we're talking, you're only in second and third grade, and kids are already talking about who's your boyfriend? Are you going steady with them? Whatever that meant, right? And
Right.
I would
Right.
say by the time I got into fifth grade, all the way to sixth grade, I had a girlfriend. What? And we even had like every teenage movie you've ever seen, every coming of age film, Chris, we had kind of like the girl that was the queen bee of the entire school, really pretty, really popular. And then we had the guy that was the jock and the dude that all the girls liked, that was, a handsome dude. And so they were kind of like already set up as the king and queen. And looking back on it, you're like, come on, man, we're only in, first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade. Let's give it a rest, man. This stuff's all going to be complicated shit later. Do we really need to create this Lord of the Flies, Bachelor, Bachelorette, horrific, before its time reality show that's the real life that you're leading as your yard duty is blowing the whistle and you're heading off to your last class for the day? Do I really need to worry about being tied down to whatever the F my grade school girlfriend wants to do? It's just such a weird weight and responsibility for a kid that young to even carry. Well, the good news is we didn't know what the fuck it even meant to be a boyfriend or a girlfriend. So, I mean, I guess it was just any other day.
Yeah. Okay. And looking back on it, it's pretty ridiculous when you think about that, because you didn't know what it meant.
Very ridiculous.
And you didn't even know at that age, you didn't even know what you didn't know. Right. Yeah. And I think that's the scary part, that, and looking back on it as a parent, that's the scary part. But let's talk a little bit, but let's do a little time jump and get into that point where it was like high school, right? And it did become that sort of, and it's like a cultural expectation, right? And everything we've learned, from watching television and movies, right? And that's when we think how it has to be, and that awkwardness and that sort of disjointedness, and that, again, even though you might be more physically mature, you still don't really know what the hell you're doing, and you still don't really know how it's supposed to go. And in retrospect, is that really a judicious use of your time?
No.
Because of just trying to be a kid. But again, you were the adopter, and so I can remember every year, and you get to you're signing, everybody's passing their yearbooks around, and you're signing your yearbooks, and there would be a hand, not like, and there'd be a handful. And when I say handful, a pretty small hand, right? Maybe 3 or 4 girls would sign my yearbook, and they would put their phone number in there. And it's like, what the hell was I supposed to do with that? I had no idea. Okay, it's like 13, 14, even 15-year-old. What was I supposed to do? How was I supposed to take, was the expectation like, I'm supposed to call her up and see if she wants to meet at Steve's Arcade? Or maybe we can go to Grossmont Center or something? Or maybe we can really take that step and go see a movie, right? Mm-hmm. Down at the UA or Parkway Bowl, one of those things. But I had no idea then. And did the girls even know? Again, yes, you can get into all those tropes about girls being more mature and everything else. And again, I'm not going to really argue with that. But I was so ill-equipped to, a girl gave me her phone number, and she might as well giving me, I don't know, the theory of relativity, because it was just about as useful to me. Yeah. Because there was no way in hell I was going to go back and go into my house and go into the den that had a different phone, had a extension in there, and pick up that phone and dial those numbers. And then basically, right, who knows what's happening next? Is her dad going to answer the phone? Is her mom going to answer the phone? Maybe she had her own phone, which was, pretty rare, but one could hope, right? Where you're going to get an answer. And what the hell was I going to do? her dad answered and I got past the gatekeeper, or if her mom answered and thought it was kind of cute, what the hell was I going to do when she got on the phone? Because immediately you're the vulnerable person, right? You're the one, like, I'm laying it all out there. I'm calling you up. Now, something has to happen. And I was so ill-equipped to that. Again, I could go back. I'd never, again, yearbooks. And again, and I'm not trying to say like, oh yeah, I was collecting all these phone numbers and some girls were doing it just to be nice. And for all I know, they gave me the phone number to the Shell station on Navajo Road.
Yeah.
But, or just a random number out of their head, right? Or their grandma's phone, who knows? But I didn't come close to even considering, like, I'm going to call that number. Because I didn't know what to do. What would I do next? Right? It's like the dog that chases the car. I don't know what the hell I would do if I caught that car.
Well, now I have to go backwards for a second here. Now, what year would you say this was? I mean, what grade were you in?
I'm saying that started in like junior high, like 8th, 9th grade, right leading up into high school. And then maybe in high school a couple of times after that. Okay, so it was just on that cusp, but it was enough to the point of like going, and the same thing is like, what kind of message is this sending? Does she like me? Does she want me to call her? Is she that bored that she's hoping I'm going to call in the summer and maybe we can go to the beach?
Chris, you know the answers to all those. Yes, she wants you to call her.
No, the answer is no.
Well, Chris, let me tell you something that you may not realize here, but and I say this to my wife all the time when we're watching a movie, right? And she'll say things like, "How do you know that guy's going to say that? Have you already seen this movie before? How did you know that guy was going to walk in or that woman's the murderer?" And the reason I know is because in every movie, every single thing that they show you, no matter how seemingly inconsequential, costs a whole bunch of money and time to shoot. So there's never something in there that wasn't meant to be in there. So in other words, if somebody in the grocery store, if the camera stays on their face just a little bit too long, and they also happen to be an actor or actress that you know, guess what? They're going to do something later on in the movie. You goddamn idiot. Okay, so yeah.
When the famous guest star on Law and Order, when there's a famous guest star, guess what? They're the murderer. They're not there just to give a witness statement, right? They're the bad guy.
If it's an episode of Colombo, they made it really easy on you. You knew who the murderer was from the very beginning, and then he would just unravel their brain. But my point in all of this, Chris, is if a girl, it doesn't matter how old she is, if she's going to take the time to give you her phone number, then to answer your question, yes, she meant to do that. Yes, she wanted you to call her. Yes, that would be totally awesome to be able to talk to somebody and then tell all of her friends that she was talking to a boy, right? And yes, they're hoping that you'll do something with them, go together to a movie or something, I guess. But look, I'm just as bewildered as you are because the exact same thing happened to me in junior high school. And let me step back 1 second again and explain that my elementary school was kind of advanced. Now, maybe it was whoever was sort of running the social circles back then, maybe I just happened to be there during the years when this one person was kind of in charge of who's who and who's going to be popular and who isn't. But dude, it was a little bit advanced for how young we were. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and what I mean, yeah,
maybe it was all those magicians running around. Maybe I don't know.
But an example would be, and the one thing I will say is, I have a vivid memory of my girlfriend in 5th grade, and I think she was assigned to me or something. It's not that she wasn't a nice person. I like her a lot, and I actually, I still know her to this day, actually. But I feel like she was just assigned to me by the person that was the social selector, the most popular person at school. This will be your girlfriend. It's like, okay, and what happens with the girlfriend again? And I remember being put in a closet at a party, by the way, a 5th grade party. Can you imagine? That must have been a pretty wild. I think we had Tang or something. Oh my gosh. Oh man. You can't even believe it.
You had Bubble Up and Orange Crush, probably, right?
Look,
something
I mean,
some Fanta.
And they're like, oh, now you and your girlfriend have to go over there and kiss. And it's just like the most forced, weird, uncomfortable thing on the planet at the time. And you're just, again, you just kind of feel like I guess this is what you're supposed to do, but honestly, I would really just prefer to get on my bike and go to wherever, right? So then, right, just like you, Chris, flash forward to junior high school, and really nice girl. I mean, just like the super, super awesome. Same thing. We were in the same PE class together, and her friends did that thing, right, Chris, where they just keep talking to you and talking to you and talking to you. Oh, man, you've got to ask her out, dude. You've got to go steady with so-and-so. Oh,
She
man,
likes you.
Jeff, she likes you so
Jeff.
much. Oh, if you could just go steady
Do
with
you
her.
like
that
her?
would be, do you like her back? Okay, just tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think? Just 100 questions. And of course, Chris, the little paper triangle things that you have to stick your fingers in and go flip, flop, turn it over, whatever that is.
Right.
I had to go through a bunch of those. And
slam books.
I remember at the end of 8th grade, I said, hey, do you want to go steady? And she's like, oh my gosh, pretending that I didn't think you even liked me or that you would ever ask. Well, obviously she had all the intel. And that was kind of right before we broke for summer vacation. And Chris, I didn't know what to do. I don't have a car. What am I supposed to do? I mean, I should have called her at least, but this is back in the day where I think she lived like maybe 6 or 7 miles away. And even by normal bike standards, that's a pretty decent,
lot,
yeah. So I guess
single speed, one speed.
The entire summer goes by and I didn't even call her one time, and it's my fault. I get it.
Oh,
but at the same time, what am I supposed to do when I do call her? Like, hey, now what do we do? I don't have a car. Do you? No, I don't. Okay, this is weird. And dude, when I came back in 9th grade to start that year, holy shit, was she mad at me. Oh my God. And we had another class together, and dude, it was just this poor girl just staring me down with the laser beam death stare every minute of that class for the entire, whatever we had back then, semester. I don't remember. Was it the whole year? I can't remember what happened, but
the semester. Yeah.
It meant it was so huge to her. And I guess it just, a dumb guy. I didn't understand any of it.
Were you still going steady?
Yeah. I think technically we are still going steady. I don't think
were you at the time when you came back after not talking to her for 2.5 months?
Chris, I think legally we might still be going steady. I don't know what happened there.
You never officially broke up. I
did get a chance to one time in high school, 2 or 3 years later, we both were walking at the same time between 2 buildings. And I guess we kind of patched it up, Chris. We were able to let bygones be bygones on that horrific ghosting that I made her go through that summer.
You had that long distance relationship of San Carlos to LA Gardens, and it was just like, I don't know if we can make this work. And, but you gave it a try. But that's exactly my point. Because you thought like, oh, you got to get a girlfriend, you got to go steady. And you had no idea what that meant. And you completely proved it that you had no idea what that meant because you made no effort. You didn't pick up the phone. You didn't see her once, right? You didn't meet her at the mall. You couldn't do any of those things. And although you probably got to a point, right, where like you did with any kind of relationship, like you get past the point of no return where it's like, I haven't called now. I probably shouldn't, right? It's like, or you get to that, I'm going to call her tomorrow because like a day turns into a week.
That is exactly what happened.
And it's just like, I can't do it now. I can't do it now. School starts next week. I'll see her then. Maybe she won't hate me.
Chris, that is exactly what happened. A day turned into a week, and then a week seemed like that was too long, and then a month. Oh my God. Exactly right. Yeah. And by the way, for those of you that may not have been alive back then, your parents are listening to this in the car, and you have nowhere to go because you're in the back seat. And even though you're tempted to jump out and spare yourself, you have to listen to this shit. So for you people in the back seat, let me just say that it's not like we didn't know what sex was. I mean, even at a pretty early age, I would say around 5th or 6th grade, I knew the birds and the bees. I knew how it worked. I understood all of this stuff. So it's not like we're being naive, like Chris and I didn't understand anything. We just assumed, but it was
you just didn't know how to.
Yeah, it was the follow through. It's like, And now what do I
Right.
do? I don't know.
Right. But you did cross the point of no return, because again, like I said, you did eventually have that high school girlfriend. And again, probably organically just sort of this I'm guessing you didn't go 2 months without, making contact with her, 3 months without contact before anything happened. Definitely that wouldn't have happened. But you did have that Tim Matheson arc of like, I don't know if maybe that character, I don't necessarily a boyfriend, good boyfriend material when you're talking about Tim Matheson, maybe
No,
Tim Matheson in general.
I would say not.
But that persona, even Bill Murray, you know what, I think I'm sensing a pattern here. You got Bill Murray and Tim Matheson, anyway, but you did cross that Rubicon of going steady when you knew what it meant, right?
Yeah.
When you could like, hey, I'll pick you up at 7 and, maybe we'll go to Round Table or go see a movie or we'll go something like that, or there's a party that we can go to together. Or so you did that again, that what we had been taught was this is how this works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, like you were like I said, most people weren't like that. It was like we would see people, and I don't remember. No, I think you said you weren't. There was that very obvious, the people that like are boyfriend and girlfriend and are holding hands in between classes and walking from their lockers, and they want everybody to know that, right? It's a very it's a spectacle in itself, especially if you didn't know. But that, for the most part, that was more the exception than the rule. So, how did that work? Did you know that at the time? Did you think that, or did you just think, oh, everybody's got a boyfriend, everybody has a girlfriend? Or you just kind of think, don't you? Were you surprised when you found out people didn't? Or did you kind of know, did you know at the time, like, yeah, we're like a couple and most people else are kind of part of a group, right? Or a bigger group? Honestly,
Chris, until you just mentioned it during this very podcast, I had never given it even a second's thought that there would be a relatively large group of people, or at least a decent group of people at any given high school that don't, or didn't, at least back then, have a steady girlfriend. Yeah, it didn't even occur to me. But what I will say is, obviously, by the time you get to late junior high school and then high school, when it comes to sex, for instance, and that kind of thing, we're fully versed at that point, right? I mean, again, I don't know what people are thinking when they're listening, but it's like, whether you had a steady girlfriend or not, you were definitely up to speed by then. That was for sure. It wasn't like I don't know. I'm always curious what it must have been like in like the 50s. I can almost imagine that there were, depending on where you were, especially the Midwest, maybe you would be like a junior or even a senior and not really fully understanding what's going on with the other sex. I mean, you kind of do, but you're not sure. I don't know. How naive were they back then? That's a different podcast, I guess. I have no idea.
That is, I think we'd have to go speak with somebody who was around. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of those people left. No, but still, like I said, so again, and now I'm trying to think if I could point something else out that you didn't think about at the time. But, if you look back, the pressures that even if you didn't have a boyfriend, or even if you didn't have a girlfriend, you had, were you going to go to the prom? Are you going to go to homecoming, right? You're going to go to, or you like, or if there's a Sadie Hawkins dance, is somebody going to ask you? There was all these inherent pressures that kind of came along, that even, like I said, I know you don't have a girlfriend, but you really should think about going to the prom, or vice versa, or the girls, the girls that didn't get asked to the girls that didn't get asked to the prom. It was like, at the time, it was maybe the worst thing that ever happened to them, right? And now looking back, it's just like, and you look at it now, and again, these are the only things that I see. And again, one of the things that made me think about this was that, and again, through social media, and it's looking at friends, and maybe they've got a kid that's 16 or 17 years old or whatever, and they're going to, this is the thing, Kelly, like, especially in the last couple of weeks, I noticed there was a lot of homecoming dances, right? Or as they call it now, they call it HOCO, which we weren't cool enough to call it then, which
okay,
I kind of have problems with, because it's, number one, is homecoming that difficult to say, that you got to shorten it to HOCO? Second of all, it's not homecoming, right?
Right.
So why is it HOCO? Shouldn't it be ho cum, but maybe that's something we don't want to call that. Maybe
Yeah.
never mind. I think I just answered my own question.
I think you
right?
did.
Especially if you're a parent of the situation. But they don't have those pressures, and that you'll see these HOCO pictures, and it'll be like anywhere from like 4 to 27 kids, right? All at somebody's house in some backyard. And there might be like, and I've seen it, it'd be like 20 girls and 7 boys, if that, right? Because I don't have to have a date. We're all going to kind of go. And I've seen that. And it's just like, and on the one hand, I'm like, okay, maybe that's cool. Because maybe that just relieved all the pressure, right? That just relieved, hey, you can just go with your friends. Because ultimately, a lot of the situations, right, if you go with somebody who is, let's say you didn't have a girlfriend like you did when you went to like a prom or homecoming,
HOCO,
and you're going to hang out with your friends anyway, right? That's kind of what's going to, after party, whatever. So maybe that's good that you're just got a big group of friends and everybody's hanging out and that's what they're doing, as opposed to that. But because then there's that other side of it, right? The prom, let's say that the corsage and the tuxedo and all that ridiculous stuff that you have to do to sort of, which is completely, it's like, am I going to sit at the captain's table, next to Doc and Gopher? Why am I wearing a tuxedo when I have to go rent it? I have to go to Gary's Tux shop or whatever and put down, at the time it was probably like $50 maybe, which was still a lot of money. And hopefully you don't ruin it. Hopefully you don't do some stupid 17-year-old boy stuff when you're wearing that rented, polyester suit. In a sense itself is kind of ridiculous. And I think they kind of sort of do that now from what I can tell, although you may see them wearing Vans or high tops or whatever, and the girls wearing Vans, and they still kind of dress up. The girls much more advanced. Some of the dresses on these girls right now, it's like, okay, yes, they definitely didn't wear that to our dances. So I think they've kind of removed sort of the pressures and the expectations, but they've also sort of, I don't know, they've kind of or I don't know, maybe it's not quite the same. And maybe that's okay, because maybe it was kind of ridiculous in the first place, right? The pressure, the cost, the expectation, everything that was sort of, I don't know. Your thoughts on it? See, because I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't have a girlfriend until I was I want to say like 21 years old. Okay. So I went way past, I never went steady with anybody in, 4th grade. I never had a girlfriend, which was probably really good in retrospect. I have a daughter in the 6th grade, and she's definitely not going steady with anybody as far as I can tell, or as much as I can help it. Right.
Yeah.
So, but so again, these things are, better, worse, changed, different, but definitely that whole sort of, but again, you tell me. So you had a girlfriend, you had the pressure wasn't the same, but maybe the expectation was harder or whatever, maybe navigating that was harder.
Yeah. First of all, until you just said, that people that don't have boyfriends or girlfriends have to go through all this anxiety and get someone. And, Chris, for some reason, it never even occurred to me, especially back then, how bad that would be to be a girl and to not have a prom date. I mean, that's wow.
Mm-hmm. It was terrible. It was awful.
A little tear was forming in my eye just thinking about the devastation there. No, really, honestly, I mean, that is super.
It was hard.
And I guess you're right. But when you said, oh, man, then you got to scramble and get a tuxedo and get this weird stuff and then bring it back on time and then rent all this stuff and pin a flower to her wrist. And it's all so alien and foreign. You're right. Because for me, someone that had been dating my girlfriend prior to the June Pro. I didn't mean to say, June Pro.
Yeah, wait. Oh, careful. I retract that statement.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, seeing as how, anyway. And then had the same girlfriend, right, for 2 years in high school in my senior year. And we went to Senpro, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how you say it, right? Senpro?
Yeah, Senpro.
Okay.
Right.
Senior.
Senpro sounds like a
it does.
Some sort of antibiotic.
I knew you were going to say that.
Just take Senpro for 5 days.
And by the way, it sounds very 70s. It sounds like Afrin, Senpro. Yeah, that does. It sounds like, or actually, it sounds like an air conditioning company call 1-800-936-SANPRO. I just made that up.
That's
but,
right.
I'm not sure if you could tell.
Right. It works. It works.
Yeah. I guess, Chris, it's so funny you would say that. It never occurred to me the weird potential stress or strangeness other people would have if you didn't have a boyfriend or girlfriend. But I was just a certain type, or I guess I'm a certain type, right? I mean, a lot of people wouldn't want a boyfriend or a girlfriend back then, and they liked their freedom and all that stuff, whatever. So I will tell you this, my girlfriend was the coolest because you were talking about a lot of the couples really tried to show off that they're a couple and they have to hold hands, or the famous put their hands in the back pocket of the other person, as your with your crisscross hands.
Oh God, I forgot about that. I can see it right now.
Crisscross. Yeah.
Oh, good God, no.
Yeah,
no.
I know it's too much. Yes, talk about rubbing the salt in your libido. And so she was the opposite of that. She dressed super cool and was not the type to hold hands or make a big show of it. And man, there you go. That's girlfriend material right there. That's pretty much the most awesome thing in the world. Yeah.
That's the I think probably at that time, because that way you could be super cool, right? The ideal girlfriend was the one who didn't act like a girlfriend, right? So because
right, exactly.
Because you're a boy, and because you were super shallow and probably and down deep, right?
Thank God I outgrew that.
Right. Well, down deep, you're like, you're kind of like, you want to have a girlfriend, but you don't want your friends to give you shit about it, right?
Well, especially because I'm married, so that wouldn't work out at all. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking back then.
Okay.
You wanted to have a girlfriend, but you wanted to have the appearance of, just being cool and aloof and detached. That whole thing about, I used to talk about it, and I think I heard it somewhere. It was like, when you have a girlfriend, all you want is more girlfriends, right? And you can get it's like kind of like, and when you have a girlfriend, maybe you're giving there's like a subliminal message that, hey, somebody likes me, right? That's interesting because, again, it's all so much of it, especially back in high school, so much of everything we did was about appearances.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's the thing that was funny. And again, I didn't have that. And did I, did we look at, did we envy you?
If you did, it was not evident. I'll tell you that right now.
I'm gonna go out and say, yeah, I think to a certain extent, yeah,
all right,
because everybody thought that was cool, because I think, but again, we were too cool to you wanted to be cool and not be super obvious. Guys wanted to be super cool and not be obvious that, oh yeah, I wish I had a girlfriend. I wish I had somebody I could, that I know I could hang out with on the weekend, and all the other benefits that came with having a girlfriend. I don't know about navigating. What was it like navigating that whole thing? Like I said, the 80s, the dad, the parents, the going to their house.
Yeah.
Were you Eddie Haskell? Could you go did you have to figure that out? I mean, was that weird? Was that awkward? Because again, not having that experience, going to a handful of proms. I will tell you that the most memorable thing is I did go to a prom and to our senior prom, where as soon as I'm going in the front door, my date turns to me and says, "Oh, by the way, you're Jewish." And I went, "What? Wait, what?" Just in case that came up in the 5 minutes that we were because she at the time was not allowed to go out with anybody that wasn't Jewish.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that normally comes up. And hey, nice to meet you. Are you Jew? Didn't come up.
Yeah.
Managed to have a good, got out the door. But what was that like?
Is Alvarez typically a Yiddish name?
No.
You don't see a lot of Alvarez's in synagogue.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No, got that a lot though. It was more than you would expect, because I guess it was Jewish adjacent because I had Jewish friends. But tell me, so what was that like navigating, walking in the front door or calling and asking if she was there? Did anything stick out?
Yeah.
Was that did you have to learn that, or knowing you, a guy who would eventually become a stand-up comedian, a guy who could literally talk to a wall because maybe there was only 2 or 3 people at that in that performance or whatever down at the Comedy Store, but or talk to a brick wall. What was that like?
Yeah. Well,
Was that what it looked like on TV? Were like Richie Cunningham? I'm sorry, was that
yeah.
Tim Matheson?
I wish it was Tim Matheson. So I had the greatest setup of all time for my girlfriend. Number one, she technically lived within walking distance of my house, right? We both had cars, but that's really cool when they live that close. Number two, her dad was not in the picture, so her dad wasn't there, and her mom was just the coolest person on the planet, just totally chill. I mean, I'm sure she, you know, was strict in some ways, I guess, but I never knew about it. And she seemed to be okay with me. So when I knocked on the door, I didn't have anything to navigate at all. So I lucked out. Yeah.
That is like the perfect situation. But from your standpoint, that was like, man, you got a free pass, right? Because it was like you didn't have to, you had to deal with that later, I guess, in life.
Yeah.
When it became more important, when it became more critical. But from that standpoint, see, that's, you dodged the proverbial one there.
Yeah. That would have
guess.
been tricky. Yeah. But what I guess I really am. Well, we both are, Chris. I mean, we're lucky that we have good memories of high school and junior high school, along with the scary stuff and the stressful stuff and the weird stuff. But those later become kind of the fun memories. But I talk to so many people that are like, I don't remember anything, right, from any of those times. I could give you maybe two memories, and it's like I've always.
I think we're talking about the same people.
Yeah, I was just like, what? How is that even possible? It just blows my mind. But I was just going to say one thing that I really lucked out in high school was my girlfriend was an actual friend, which I think probably is kind of rare, right? I mean, we had a, normal romantic high school relationship, like you can imagine, but this was a person that like was just super fun to be around. It was just like having, the most awesome friend on the planet. So for me, time was just like moving by really quick. I never had that thing that a lot of guys would have, like, oh, I need a different girlfriend, or this is getting old, or I don't know. For me, it was just like, it seemed like we were together for 2 minutes, but I'm sure with my super obnoxious, sarcastic, ridiculously relentless, hyper, way worse back in high school persona, I'm sure that I finally just wore her down, just in terms of just like, dude, I just can't with the jokes. I'm done. Too many. No.
Well, I think, and then maybe, and again, without sounding like the old man yelling at the cloud, I think we had it good in this in certain ways, because I think a relationship like that can become a little more pure when you talk about the pressures that they have now, whereas you didn't have to be accountable for every minute of the day, right? And someone you weren't so like, if you were not home, that's it. You weren't home, right? And no one's gonna, and you're not a phone call or text message away. You're not, you're not on social media. You're not any of those sort of things. So again, I could see where it was difficult logistically when somehow we managed to figure out like how to meet somebody at a certain time or whatever. And I think we've talked about that before. Yeah. But like, if you think about it, it was more pure. It was a little easier. And maybe that was it. I would almost say it was probably definitely, I don't know, somebody would have to tell me I'm wrong, how that couldn't be better, because you could have a girlfriend. And this even came into, I remember that when I eventually did have a girlfriend, but you still had a certain amount. Well, yeah, I'm not home. I'm out somewhere, and I'm not accessible till I get home, and maybe I have my answering machine by then or whatever. And that sort of thing, caller ID, all those sort of things, all those weird things. And that was the cool part, right? That phone call, right? When you did get somebody's phone number, or maybe somebody and the phone rang and you didn't know who was on the other end, where that was a little bit exciting.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
A little bit scary, right? A little bit from whatever those phone numbers that I never called because I had no idea how phones worked, apparently. But I mean, that, all those layers they were almost like layers of security, right? All those layers are stripped away to the point where, man, I know who called me. I know what time they called. I know how many times they called. Whatever. There's just, like I said, I don't know if I guess it's okay. We've evolved. People get through it. Kids get through it. But man, to me, that seems like that just would have added more of the pressure. Maybe that's why they go to HOCO in groups of 27, because they have to have some sort of defense mechanism.
I think you just answered your own question. I think that's it. Exactly. You nailed it. I mean, it was so daunting. You're right, Chris, to make those phone calls to someone that, like, a girl, and, you're trying to get her to like you, but you don't know who's going to pick up. You're right. And it's just the most weirdest thing to think, to your point, the dad, I don't know, who is this? The brother, the plumber? Like, who am I talking to right now? And then I remember a couple times calling girls that I liked, just taking a chance, like, okay, I'm just going to call her, right? And this is in grade school, right? I'm going to call Heidi or, Lisa or whatever, right? And you call, and then what happens? You never get the person that you're trying to call. It's always like a brother or a mother or a father. And then they do one of these things. Who's this? Who's calling? Can you tell her it's Jeff? Hey, Lisa, Jeff's on the phone. Jeff who? I don't know. He just said his name is Jeff. I don't know a Jeff.
Jeff Hill?
She says she doesn't know any Jeffs. No. So
that would be the worst.
Anyway, that happens so many times, and you're like, man, this is really killing. Speaking of stand-up comedy, this is really killing my flow, man. I'm trying to get this like super smooth introduction to this girl. You're just
destroying my game.
Yeah.
There's nothing, and again, it's something as innocuous, especially if you were in 5th grade, and again, you were just gonna I'm just gonna call her. And that was the extent of your plan, right? You had no plan past hello.
Hey, so far so good. I said hello. Okay, here we go.
Right, and it's ringing, and maybe there's 4 people in the house, so there's just got a 1 in 4 chance that she's going to answer it, right? But I think, what was hilarious to me is like, you're so, again, I was just talking about those layers, and you're so exposed, right? When you make that first phone call, right? Because you're dipping your toe in the water. It's like, and I've had this discussion with him. I think I had this discussion with my wife. It was like the simple thing again, that you knock it. Let's throw it out again and go back to one of these, again, a dance situation, and just be like one of the, the casual, not like the formal, like remember the Friday night green and gold dance or something. It's like, you pay a few bucks and you go and you're in the gym for a couple hours, hang out, and then you go drink somewhere. And again, that carries on, I think, in adulthood. The act of asking somebody to, hey, do you want to dance, is like, you're basically, and I've told it, and I don't know if you agree, it's like I've had this discussion again with women, including my own wife, saying you're putting yourself out there because you're like saying, hey, do you want to dance? Is like, hey,
yeah, I know, right?
I'm attracted to you, right? I like you. I like the way you look. I like what you're wearing. I'd like to dance with you. Whereas girls at the time, and even women in later social situations, because again, I had this conversation many times, they just want to dance, right? They're just like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll dance. It could be at a wedding, right? It could be at a school event. It could be at any, something where there's dancing. It could be at a bar eventually. Oh, I just want to dance. And maybe I'll drag my friend, and they want to dance with their friend because like they don't want their friend to feel left out. And it's just like, no, if it's you and me, Jeff, I don't give a fuck if you feel left out. I'm going to go dance. I'm not going to say, Jeff, come dance with us.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that would have been weird. No. Right? There's no way. And you would have been okay with it. You'd be like, what? I'm not coming out there dancing and being the third wheel. And then it's like, but they would drag all of their friends, especially their friend who never got asked to dance. And then all of a sudden you're dancing with them and their friend who you didn't ask to dance and who you would never dance with and whatever. And so it's like, but you're you're so exposed, and you put yourself out there to the extent of asking them to dance is the equivalent of like,
I like you.
Would you like to go out sometime?
Yeah.
Right. It's that much. Yes. Because we don't, like I said, if we're not attracted to them, if we don't like them, like I said, we're shallow as hell. We're self-absorbed. I don't care.
You can't go backwards once you let it out, right? Like when you say, Exactly. When you call them
Oh.
on the phone for the first time out of the blue, like to your point,
Uh-huh.
there's no going back. You can't pull it back. And when you ask them to dance, you're just saying, I really like you, and there's no going backwards as much as you would want to. It just can't happen. You can't go, hey, Jeff who on the phone, and it's a really bad conversation. You're like, hey, I wasn't calling you because I like you. This is just like a wrong number. I'm just shocked that there really was a Heidi. The fact that there was a Heidi there and your name's, oh man. Well, anyway, this has been a weird accidental phone call or at the dance. Hey, I just ask every single girl. I just do it equal opportunity. Don't think that I like you because I picked you to dance. I'm just doing this with everyone. In fact, I don't even want to be here. Like there's no way to go backwards once you put your foot in. Yeah.
Right. I like to dance. I just saw Fame, and I just thought, you know what? That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out there and dance indiscriminately, even though I can't dance. Like I said, there was so much putting yourself out there. And I guess maybe were the girls in the yearbook in 8th grade, were they putting themselves out there when they randomly put their phone numbers out? Or, or again, and I was too stupid to know, or is it, did they do it? I probably should stop harping on this. Were they doing it because their friends were doing it?
No.
Because I refuse to accept that they really wanted like 14-year-old me to call them up to do something. I will never accept that.
Why? That is the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Yes, they wanted you to call them. That's why they put it in there. And yes,
to pick them up on my skateboard.
Their friends were also doing it, and so they did it too. But they were also going to have such a fun time talking to each other later when one of these boys actually called them, right? I'm not even sure they cared about talking to the boy as much as they cared about telling their girlfriends that they talked to the boy, right? I don't even know, but yeah.
Right, they got called. The result of the call was immaterial.
Yeah.
Right? The fact that the call happened,
validation.
The details in the calls, right. It was the effort. But again, and they would always have that on you because they could have said, guaranteed there's somebody, and maybe there was somebody who didn't get that, and maybe there was somebody who didn't get the message who called incessantly once they had that phone number. And then 40 years later, they were saying, oh, back in 8th grade, this boy used to call me all the time, and my dad used to get really mad. And
I would say just don't date girls that have dads.
That is the moral of the story. Yeah, it seemed to work out for you. Ironically or coincidentally enough, I actually my wife her dad had passed away before I met her several years ago. So actually, I ultimately took that advice, and it seems to have worked out as much as I would have liked to known him. I didn't have to navigate that. I didn't have to navigate that when it really, really mattered, I guess, is the important part.
Do you feel like he would have approved of you, Chris, or is there a chance that he would have said, by God, what in God's name are you doing with this guy? I mean, I don't hate him. He's a nice enough guy, but really, you can do better. I feel like you're settling. I really do.
It's like I have to bring in a special guest to get the answer to that question, but I don't know. That's like a question for our times.
No, of course he would. I was just kidding.
And when we get done, maybe I will go ask her, would your dad have liked me? I don't know. I assume so. He seemed to be, and from what I know, he seemed to be an easygoing guy, and he liked a lot of people, and he was very social.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. See, you don't have, and you've told stories about your sons and bringing their girlfriends to your house and everything else, and then when one of your sons was living, and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know how I would handle that. And again, having a 12-year-old daughter, but a 20-year-old son, I get to see the other side of it. But again, nobody cares. So you've never had to worry about some guy that your daughter was going to bring home.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm hopefully several years away from that.
Yeah.
But I will try to turn into, I don't know, the dad that, I don't know, maybe they're a little bit afraid of. Maybe that works better. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't work anymore. Maybe kids today aren't afraid of anything. I don't know. I'm going to have to go yell at another cloud and figure that out, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think they respond to the same stimulus. Chris, you just got to go super Steven Seagal, right? Just no
I don't
holds
look good in a
barred.
ponytail. I can't imagine how
Just
that would work.
what hair you have.
Okay.
I want you to pull it back, start growing the ponytail now, and just get super weird, man. Wear one of those black Nehru jackets, and
Yeah, like a kimono, like
and the
carry
black
around a samurai sword, and have like this really terrible like shoe polish black,
scraggly
like
goatee.
Fu Manchu.
Yeah,
I don't even know if you can call that a Fu Manchu anymore. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's politically incorrect. Wow. Okay. That's a lot to think about now.
Well, Chris, I feel as we wind down here on this episode that you came into this with a lot of really good questions, albeit a little bit naive, maybe surprisingly naive based on, how old you are and you have a couple kids and a wife. But it's nice that you were, okay asking these questions about what was it like having a girlfriend. I just never in a million years would have expected you to ask those questions or be so bewildered that a girl would be interested in you. And I know it's not false flattery. I know you're not, fishing for compliments. You really think that those girls just put their numbers in there just for fun, just as a joke. Yeah, couldn't possibly be that Chris was a nice guy that they kind of liked. Well, anyway,
I should go dig out my old yearbooks and find some of those numbers and call them up.
Well,
see where they lead to. But
well, that's creepy, and maybe it should have been a joke. Now I'm taking everything back that I just said.
I appreciate that, Jeff, and I appreciate the insight, and I appreciate the honesty and the candor and the information. And it's I knew you at that time, obviously, but I didn't know because again, it was like I said, it was the television trope. It was the expectation. It was that you got to have a boyfriend, you got to have a girlfriend, you got to go on dates, you got to do all this stuff, and so thanks for the clarity.
Sure.
And thanks again for making me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I relate to it.
Yeah.
Any more than I did, but I definitely understand it a little bit more. So and that's all that really matters, right?
Well, good. I love it. I'm glad that you're feeling better about it, and I could be part of that. Who knows what new emotions will be opened up? What new feelings will rise to the surface in the next episode of Nice Pull? I've been Jeff Bill, and this has been Chris Alvarez. Chris, until next time.
Till next time, Jeff.